Following the African leaders' move to mediate peace in the ongoing Ukraine conflict, the leaders recently met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in St. Petersburg on a mission aimed at bringing the warring sides to the negotiating table. This crisis has had far-reaching implications, not least on Africa, where soaring grain prices are causing significant distress. This peace-seeking delegation, confirmed by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa's office, included leaders from Zambia, the Comoros, Congo-Brazzaville, Egypt, Senegal, and Uganda. These leaders have previously visited Kiev, where they met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. During their meeting with the Russian leader, the African delegation is also anticipated to address the Black Sea grain deal, an agreement that could potentially transform the future of food security across the African continent. Despite criticism from Western nations for a perceived lack of condemnation towards Russia's actions, these African leaders are steadfastly seeking a peaceful resolution. In a move to bolster Africa's influence on the world stage, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has proposed full G20 membership for the African Union. In a letter to his G20 counterparts, he argues that this inclusion should occur at the group's upcoming summit in New Delhi. Sources emphasize that Prime Minister Modi has championed this cause, underscoring his commitment to amplifying the voices of the Global South, particularly those from African nations. This step, they maintain, is a stride towards a more equitable, inclusive, and representative global governance structure. Under India's G20 presidency, Prime Minister Modi has been particularly diligent in ensuring that the African nations' priorities are incorporated into the G20 agenda. Earlier this year, India hosted the Voice of the Global South Summit, intending to shed light on the issues and challenges that developing countries face. This latest move appears to be a continuation of that dedication to promoting equity and representation on a global scale. As June concludes, Somalia is poised for uncertainty with the upcoming withdrawal of 2,000 African Union Transition Mission in Somalia, ATMIS, troops. The potential security gap has sparked concerns of governmental instability, mirroring recent events in Afghanistan. Abdisalam Yusuf Gould, Somalia's former deputy chief of the National Security Agency, has voiced concerns about the impact of the withdrawal without adequate support structures. Despite these concerns, the Somali government remains confident in their security capabilities post-ATMIS, and a task force has been set up to manage the transition. In opposition to the prevailing anxieties, Ismail Dahir Osman, former deputy chief of Somalia's National Intelligence and Security Agency, expresses optimism, stating the weakening state of militant group Al-Shabaab and expecting international support for Somalia's national army. As the ATMIS withdrawal nears, Somalia's future is in the balance. A 3-day ceasefire has begun in Sudan, following 2 months of brutal conflict that has thrown the country into turmoil and claimed more than 3,000 lives, with over 6,000 wounded. The truce, facilitated by the United States and Saudi Arabia, comes in advance of a pledging conference hosted by the UN and other nations to raise funds for Sudan's dire humanitarian needs. With less than 16% of the required $2.57 billion received to assist those in need in Sudan in 2023, an additional $470 million is needed to support refugees in the Horn of Africa region. As a result, over 2.2 million people have been forced to flee their homes, seeking safety within Sudan or in neighboring countries. The humanitarian situation in Sudan is deteriorating rapidly, with more than half the country's population, 24.7 million people, in need of assistance. Over 100,000 children are projected to suffer severe acute malnutrition with medical complications by year's end. Uganda is intensifying security measures and conducting a broad search operation following a devastating attack by militants linked to the Islamic State group. The attack, which occurred in the western region of the country near the Democratic Republic of Congo border, resulted in the death of at least 41 people, predominantly students. Uganda's First Lady, Janet Museveni, reassured the public on Saturday evening that the government is thoroughly investigating the incident and is committed to delivering justice. The deadly assault unfolded at Liberia Secondary School in Pondwe, where armed assailants used guns and knives and set fire to dormitories. Students who survived the harrowing experience reported that the attackers demanded entry, shot through the windows and doors, and eventually set the buildings ablaze while the students were still inside. The attackers, identified as members of the Allied Democratic Forces (ADF), also abducted 6 people during the late-night raid before fleeing towards the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Ugandan military is currently in pursuit of the attackers. Polls in Bamako, Mali, closed at 6 p.m. Universal Time Coordinated on Sunday, June 18th, marking the end of a significant day where citizens voted on a proposed new constitution. The draft constitution aimed to amplify the president's powers, reform institutions, and officially recognize traditional authorities. Supervisor Hamadoun Sissoko from the Constitutional Court expressed satisfaction with the voting process, stating that there were no significant issues. Approximately 8.4 million citizens were eligible to participate in this pivotal referendum. However, the threat of jihadist attacks in the central and northern regions meant that voting could not be conducted everywhere. Notably, the town of Kidal, a former rebel stronghold, was unable to participate in the vote. EU-backed civil society observers reported minor issues at polling stations and noted that over 80 polling stations in Mopti, central Mali, did not open due to security risks. In certain areas such as Menaka and Bodio, political disagreements reportedly hampered voting. Kenya and the European Union have inked a trade agreement, marking the EU's first major deal with an African nation since 2016. This comes as Brussels seeks to build stronger economic ties with Africa and counter China's growing influence in the region. Kenyan President William Ruto and EU Trade Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis finalized the EU-Kenya Economic Partnership Agreement. This landmark deal will provide Kenya with duty-free and quota-free access to the EU market. On the flip side, imports from the EU to Kenya will be subject to gradual tariff reductions over a 25-year span, although some sensitive products will be exempted. This deal is expected to boost trade in Kenya's agricultural products, including vegetables, fruits, tea, coffee, and the nation's renowned cut flowers, of which over 70% are exported to Europe. This agreement is not just a coup for Brussels, but also a win for Kenya, providing a predictable market for its farmers and new opportunities for trade. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, with 6 months until the elections, tension mounts amidst claims of potential election rigging and social unrest. President Felix Tshisekedi is vying for a second term in the single-round presidential election scheduled for December 20th. However, the election process is under scrutiny as the opposition, including candidates Martin Fayulu, Moise Katumbi, Matata Ponyo, and Deli Sasenga, protest against the current composition of the National Electoral Commission and the Constitutional Court, citing fears of fraud and chaos. Despite allegations of fanciful voter registration and possible violence, the authorities affirm elections will take place as scheduled. The powerful Catholic Church, civil society, and the international community are calling for transparent and peaceful elections, while supporters of former President Joseph Kabila are urging a boycott. Analyst Tresor Kabangula of the Abudali Research Institute suggests an independent audit of the electoral register could help regain public confidence and reduce political tension. The High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy and Egypt's top diplomat met on Sunday, discussing strategic relations, economic partnership, and cooperation in the Mediterranean. Amidst an escalating refugee crisis resulting from the conflict in neighboring Sudan, the EU has pledged immediate aid to Egypt. With over 200,000 Sudanese refugees arriving in Egypt recently, the European Union has committed $20 million, about $22 million, to assist in handling the situation. The funding is a response to the ongoing warfare between Army General Al-Burhan and paramilitary commander Dagalo in Sudan. With over 1,800 people killed in just over 2 months, according to NGO Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, the conflict has led to widespread displacement. The United Nations reports that nearly 2 million people have been displaced, including 476,000 who have sought refuge in neighboring countries. In a thrilling conclusion to Sunday's African Cup of Nations qualifier, Nigeria secured their place in AFCON 2024, clinching a 3-2 victory over Sierra Leone. Thanks to a last-minute goal from Leicester's Kelechi Iheanacho in the 95th minute, the Nigerian Eagles ensured their participation in the upcoming tournament. Earlier, Napoli striker Victor Osimhen's brace had put Nigeria on a strong footing before Sierra Leone leveled the scores in the 84th minute. In another riveting match, Tanzania, despite a bizarre incident where the referee sent off the ball boys for disrupting the game, managed a crucial 1-0 home win against Niger. A 69th-minute goal from Simon Msuva secured Tanzania's victory, placing them in a promising position to qualify from Group F. They now need only a single point from Algeria in the final day of qualifiers this September to secure second place in the group. Algeria had already confirmed their place at AFCON 2024 in Côte d'Ivoire by beating Uganda 2-1 on Sunday, courtesy of a stellar performance by winger Mohamed El Amine Amoura. Sunday's games have set the stage for an exciting conclusion to the AFCON qualifiers, with several teams battling it out for the remaining spots in the 2024 tournament.